Hello, and welcome to the No Wrong Notes podcast, a show hosted by me, Veronica Kokos, holistic voice teacher and singer just like you. Grab a cup of tea, relax, and sit back as we discuss all things singing technique, mindset tips, and more so you can show up as the most confident and creative singer you can be. Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of No Wrong Notes. I am back with another Q&A episode answering all of your questions, ranging from some good singing questions about breath support to music recs. These episodes are always fun for me since y'all always ask questions on topics that I maybe don't cover in regular episodes. Your questions always get me thinking of things that I hadn't thought to talk about, so keep them coming because I'll do more of these episodes in the future. So if you'd like your question answered on a future episode, shoot it over to me on Instagram, which is linked in the show description. Or keep an eye out on Instagram stories as I sometimes crowdsource for these episodes with the question box. Now, diving right into things, the first question is actually a big one. What does the term breath support mean? This person says that they feel like every singing video that they see online has a different definition of what it is, and they're feeling confused about what they should actually be doing when they're singing. All right, so I'll be upfront and say this one can be a real doozy to answer since I also agree with this question and that it seems like every teacher has a different definition of what breath support means. More than that, not every teacher uses the term breath support or uses the term interchangeably with terms like breath energy and breath management, since the term breath support has gotten so confusing over time for so many singers. I even use the terms interchangeably, though I rarely use the term breath support and tend to like the term breath management a lot more, because that's essentially what breath support is, a way of managing your breath, especially on the exhale. Even though there are lots of definitions of breath support and breath management out there, I'm only going to share the definition that I subscribe to, since we could literally go for hours talking about the different ideas of breath management that are out there. The method that I use most often, which was popularized by voice teacher Manuel Garcia II, is that the inhale should involve keeping a raised or open chest and a lowering of the diaphragm. Another way that I like to think about this is the inhale involving a low breath, aka the abdominal muscles expanding on the inhale while keeping the chest lifted and expanded. On the exhale, the singer should exhale with the same slowness and speed as the inhale, keeping the lungs inflated as long as possible. To do this on a practical level, some teachers ask students to keep the rib cage and abdominal muscles expanded outward, almost as if you have a rubber band around your rib cage and abdominals that you're keeping expanded on the exhale. This method can and should be adapted for the genre of music that you're singing. For classical singing, you're going to need a lot more air and lower body engagement than singing a non-classical piece. I find that when I sing a pop song, I need a lot less air and engagement in the lower body, though I still like to keep an awareness of how engaged my rib cage and abdominals are, since it helps me maintain a sense of groundedness in my singing and in the singing of my students. Now, to sum all of that up, the breath management technique that I use most often is this method where you get this low, expansive breath on the inhale and maintain a sense of resistance on the exhale, keeping the rib cage and abdominals expanded. Obviously, the amount of air and resistance you'll need will vary depending on what you're singing and where you're singing in the vocal range. But I find that this method works best for my singing and the singing of my students, since it helps them feel more connected to their lower body and it reduces excess tension in and around the larynx. This is the method that I was taught by my teachers. And like I said, you want to adapt it to whatever it is that you're singing. You know, when it comes to breath support and breath management, even though I talk about this method, I understand that, not one size fits all, depending on what it is that we're singing. So this is where working with a teacher can really come in handy, since a teacher or vocal coach will be able to kind of guide you in terms of maybe how much breath you need in a classical piece versus a non-classical piece. All right, that was a lot. Let's move on to the second question. This person says, I've been listening to your episodes on manifestation, and even though I see the practical side to it, it all feels like a bunch of wishful thinking to me. Does it actually work, and has it worked for you? This is a really good question, since I think it gets at some of the issues and questions that people have when it comes to manifestation. And I want to make one thing clear here. When it comes to the content that I've shared regarding manifestation, you can totally take it or leave it. I understand that some people have issues with new agey things like manifestation, and I totally get that. In sharing those episodes, my only intention was to provide another method of goal setting, because that's really all it is, goal setting with a sparkle, as I like to say. I personally love how manifestation involves visualization, which not all goal setting methods emphasize. As for whether it has worked for me or not, I believe that it has. That may make me sound like a crazy person, but when you set goals that are in alignment with your values, you envision what they may look like and take steps to achieve them, they have a higher chance of happening than just writing them down somewhere, than never acting on them. However, I also understand the privileges that I have, namely being a middle-class white woman with a fiance who has helped me financially. Those things have an impact on whether or not I'm capable of achieving the goals that I want to manifest. It was a lot easier to build my dream of having my own business when my fiance could afford to help me out with certain bills. Not everyone has that kind of privilege, and we need to talk about it when we talk about manifestation. Obviously, there's so much that I could talk about when it comes to the topics of privilege and manifestation, but I'll wrap up this topic by saying that manifesting your goals is possible, though the actual manifestations of those goals are going to look different for everyone, especially when it comes to conversations about privilege. Use your manifestations for the good of all, y'all, to enhance not only your life, but the lives of those around you and in your community. And that is something that I think a lot of people, when we talk about manifestation, a lot of people miss, because people are like, oh, great, I'll manifest myself, a Porsche or, a Tesla or whatever. And it's just like, what is that actually doing for your community? And as much as I want to say no hate to people that, want to manifest those things, I think we're all doing the best that we can with the knowledge that we have. But I will say that, I think manifesting for the good of your community is really where it's at. If you want to manifest a certain kind of work, like for example, me manifesting this business, this studio that I have, it wasn't just so I could be like, oh yeah, have my own business and rock on and whatever. I also just wanted to serve more people. I wanted to take the knowledge that I had gained over the years and share that with other people so that they would feel empowered as well. So I know that that's a long way of saying, manifest for the good of your community, but that's kind of all I'll say about that. And that's where we'll kind of leave that conversation. Let's move on to the third question. What music have you been listening to lately? Like, what artists and albums are worth the listen? This is a great question. I love talking about music, obviously, but some of what I've been listening to lately has been Kacey Musgraves' new album, Deeper Well, that just came out. Just ordered that on vinyl the other day, along with SZA's new single, Saturn. I'm really excited to see if she releases a new album soon. I'm loving the kind of ethereal, spiritual qualities that have been showing up in music lately, and I feel like these albums, these songs, Kacey Musgraves and SZA's music really embodies that. By the time this episode comes out, I believe Beyonce's new album will have arrived, so I'm also looking forward to hearing her country era. All right. The last question here says, I have a hard time projecting low notes. How do I make my low notes heard more clearly? This is an awesome question. There's definitely some info missing here that would help me better refine my answer. For one, I'm not sure what your vocal range is or what your vocal type might be. While there are things that we can do as singers to help our voice be better heard by others, a mezzo-soprano's or alto's low notes are going to have a different kind of power and resonance than a soprano's low notes, for example. With that being said, there are a few things that can help with this. For one, taking in and using less air, and two, choosing a brighter vowel sound that cuts down on space in the vocal tract. For example, if I sing like this, where I'm using too much air and I'm using what I would call a darker vowel, like if I sing down here, mew, 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 with this vowel that has a lot of space to it, and it creates a lot of space in the vocal tract, and I'm also using a ton of air. That sound is maybe not as resonant. But if I reduce air and choose a slightly brighter, more childlike vowel, like taking this mew, for example, mew, 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 I'm cutting down on the air that I'm using and using a vowel sound that kind of cuts down on space in the vocal tract. And maybe that's the kind of sound I would take into my classical singing. But if I had to use this in more of a non-classical context, if I'm singing on the word money, for example, if I'm going money, 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 money with all of this space and air, that sound is okay, but it's not entirely super resonant. But if I cut down on space in my vocal tract, cutting down on space in the mouth and throat, and choosing a brighter vowel sound using less air, money, 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 money. I'll do those back to back so you can hear the difference. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. The second one feels a lot easier to me, and to me sounds a little bit more resonant. So these are just some tips that you can use to make your low notes sound a little bit more resonant, reducing the amount of air that you use, and brightening up your vowel sounds, which can really cut down on space in the vocal tract to increase resonance. And try these out and see how it goes. Let me know how it goes as well. All right, that is it for our questions this time. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said earlier, if you've got questions of your own, feel free to submit those to me on Instagram. The link is in the show description. If you liked this episode, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star rating and review on your platform of choice. Also, follow me on social media. The links to those are also in the show descriptions. You can follow me there for more singing tips. And in the meantime, happy singing, y'all.